guys, welcome. Welcome to episode 3 of Musical Reflections of a Slightly Conscious Being. Today I have a song in Portuguese for you. So I will translate, okay? So if you guys don't, of course, probably you guys won't understand the lyrics. But I will translate the best as I can because I noticed when I was translating this song that it was hard for me to keep the meaning in Portuguese, especially because I use a word that is very Portuguese, which is saudade. Saudade, it's our word for the feeling of missing someone. And I know the Portuguese language is the only language in the world, I think, that has a word for that. I'm Sandra, a music artist that is on a journey towards consciousness. And let's start with my song. It's called Ainda Nos Vamos Acertar, which again, it's a Portuguese expression, but it basically means we can still make it, or one day we'll still make it. I think that's the best I can do in English. And that will set the theme for today, which is expectations. So managing expectations and how we can also filter between our expectations and our reality. Because at least in my case, I was for many years focused on an ideal scenario or in basically unreal expectations that were never fulfilled. And so I lived in a state of disappointment because I kept having these scenarios in my head, and then reality was totally different. So I think it's so important to understand the difference and managing expectations. So let's start with these. And today I'll be playing the guitar. I actually decided to change the key of the song today because the original song it's not played with a capo. But I do feel like it works best with a capo. Also, another thing about this song that is very unique about from all of my other songs is that it's the only original that I have that the guitar wasn't fully composed by me. Actually, Ricardo, my former partner, he was the one who did most of the guitar chords, and then I made the rest up, and he allowed me to use his composition. So let's do this. Ainda nos vamos acertar. Não sei o que estou a fazer aqui. Não te consigo arrancar de dentro de mim. O tempo passa e o verão acabou. Mas é tanta saudade que em mim ficou. Não sei o que mais posso fazer. Será que tem de ser assim? Por mais que eu tente esquecer, esta dor não vai ter fim. Mas ainda aqui estou. Tudo passa, mas a cicatriz ficou. O vento sopra e a noite cai. O sol foi-se, mas a recordação não vai. Não sei o que mais posso fazer. Será que tem de ser assim? Por mais que eu tente esquecer, este amor não vai ter fim. Mas a vida não para e o mundo dá voltas. Nunca se sabe onde ele vai parar. E um dia, quem sabe, ainda vais voltar. Ainda nos vamos acertar. I chose this song because it's a song that I played many times. This song was written 6 years ago, by the way. And even though, I was on a relationship for 16 years, but I broke up the relationship after 10 years, and we were separated for 7 months, more or less. And I was in a really dark time of my life, and I felt like I quit my job, I quit the relationship, got back to my parents' home. So I was finding myself, and I never cut ties with my former partner, so we would still talk as friends. And as my life started to improve, as I started to improve my life, started to get my direction, get out of depression, and I started again to come up with some expectations about maybe I could try again, maybe we could try again, maybe we should try again. And that's when I wrote this song. So let's start with the lyrics, as always, okay? And I'll be translating the best I can, because it's hard when I write a song in Portuguese. It's really hard for me to translate into English without losing meaning, and the same way around. Sometimes when I write in English and then I translate to Portuguese, it doesn't sound that well. I'll do my best. So, não sei o que estou a fazer aqui. I don't know what I'm doing here. Não te consigo arrancar de dentro de mim. I can't rip you off of me. O tempo passa e o verão acabou. Time goes by and summer's gone. Mas é tanta a saudade que em mim ficou. Okay, this is the hard one, because saudade is the word we use for the feeling of missing someone. So basically, it's saying the feelings of missing you still are inside of me very strongly. Não sei o que mais posso fazer. I don't know what else to do. Será que tem que ser assim? Does it really need to be this way? Por mais que eu tente esquecer, no matter how much I try to let go, esta dor não vai ter fim. This pain will never end. Mas ainda aqui estou, but I'm still here. Tudo passa, mas a cicatriz ficou. Time goes by, but the scar is still here. O vento sopra e a noite cai. The wind blows and the night arrives. O sol foi-se, mas a recordação não vai. The sun goes away, but the memories won't. Não sei o que mais posso fazer. I don't know what else to do. Será que tem que ser assim? Does it really need to be this way? Por mais que eu tente esquecer, no matter how much I try to let go, este amor não vai ter fim. This love will never end. Mas a vida não para, but life doesn't stop, e o mundo dá voltas, and the world goes round and round. Nunca se sabe onde ele vai parar. We never know where it will stop. E dia, quem sabe, and someday, who knows, ainda vais voltar, you'll come back, ainda nos vamos acertar. We still can make it. So, there you go. This is the translation of the lyrics. Reminiscing, the thing is, it's a word for us. Saudade, it's a word. It's a name, I'm sorry. Of course it's a word. It's a name. It's not a verb, it's a name. Saudade. Just like you guys use the word love for the feeling love, we use the word saudade for the feeling of missing someone. So, in this case, I will not translate the lyrics from part. I will not analyze the lyrics part to part, because the lyrics are very straightforward. It's really easy to understand. It's basically, the feeling of missing someone and the feeling of thinking that we'll never get over that person, and maybe one day we'll be together again. Again, just playing ideal scenarios in our heads. And expectations about the future. And of course, we all have expectations about the future, right? And on those scenarios, we try our best to predict what's going to happen. Same thing happens on relationships, right? We have expectations about others in our lives, being our friends, our family, or our romantic partners. And this is interesting. I recently found out that one of my friends is actually a couple counselor, and I had no idea. But I was talking with him about relationships, and he said, he's a couples. It does couples. It doesn't say therapy; it says counselor. And when he does appointments, private appointments, he was saying that one of the first questions that he asks to his clients is, what were your top 3 expectations when you entered this relationship? And then he asks, are those expectations being met? And this seems like so simple, but it's really deep if you think about it, because most people enter relationships with unreal expectations, right? Some of them enter relationships because they were feeling lonely and needed someone to fill up their emotional hole. And some people just cannot be alone for long. They go through life jumping from relationship to relationship and just trying to find the right person, just like those Disney movies, like there's a right person, and when you meet the right person, everything will be well and you'll have your fairy tale ending. And this is actually really bad because it sets expectations for us. When we are kids, we learn to set expectations. These are our ideals, and they are so wrong because they are just impossible to fulfill, right? So let me just pour some water. There's that song, Pour Some Sugar on Me, and I just want to pour some water in my glass. So, many people just jump from relationship to relationship, trying to find the right one. And they do for a while, right? There's this phase, which is called the honeymoon phase, which is the beginning of the relationship. And when we are on the beginning, when we meet someone for the very first time, our egos usually only focus on the positive sides of that person. But then inevitably, sooner or later, because no one's perfect, right? Our perfect partner does or fails to do something that our egos wanted or not wanted them to do. This always happens. So what happens in this case is that our prediction system fails, and that is kind of inevitable because it's based on unreal expectations. And of course, life and people are unpredictable. And then what happens? So usually that's when happens the first disagreement, and I think that's actually the very real first relationship test on any relationship, when there's a disagreement. Because usually when people don't see eye to eye, that's when we see people's true colors. And it's a test for ourselves as well, how we handle it. Because we also have our egos. There are always two people involved in here. So this is true for our partners, and it's true for ourselves. So I remember really well my very, very first argument on my relationship, and past relationship. And before that, I remember when I met my first partner and I entered the relationship, I thought he was perfect. I thought he had absolutely no flaws, and I was going through a really hard time in my life, and he was a huge emotional support for me back then. And I remember thinking, and I remember you saying, you have no flaws, you're just perfect, you're like my guardian angel. I remember I used to call him my guardian angel. But that was just until we had our very first fight or argument. And that was, I don't know, 2-3 months after we start our relationship. And we met each other on the band that we were playing. And after we met in February, and after 2 months, we were already dating. And it was, I think, 2-3 months after that. And it was such a silly argument. I mean, we were both 18 back then, but the way he behaved, even after I apologized, and because it was just a silly thing. Basically, every year I used to go on a 2-week vacation here in Setúbal with my grandma, my uncle, and sometimes my mom. I think my mom was that way that year as well. So we would spend 2 weeks, and we would take the bus till the beach. And when I arrived, of course, I missed him and I was happy to see him, but I was also very, very excited because those 2 weeks were fun for me. I know I'm going to the beach and hang out with my family. And he starts sulking and saying that I didn't miss him that much. So it's just silly things. I mean, we were both young, but what was really striking for me is that even though I apologized and made my best to reassure him that that wasn't the case, and of course he was at home with nothing to do and I was having fun. So for me, those 2 weeks went by a lot quicker. And I was happy after those 2 weeks, and he was just miserable because he had missed me so much. But the thing is, the way he behaved, he didn't accept my apology. And he carried out complaining, ignoring all my repair attempts, and eventually he shut himself up completely and stayed silent for minutes. And it was so frustrating for me, but so frustrating that I started to cry, because that's what happened when I get emotionally overwhelmed. I start crying, and that was the very first time he saw me crying, and he was very shocked when he saw me crying, and he changed the behavior. He apologized. He saw how much his behavior was hurting me. So we made peace, and I didn't cry on purpose. I didn't cry to make him feel bad. I couldn't help it. But even though we came a long way in 16 years, of course, but their argument was actually very enlightening. Even looking back right now, it was like a flash forward to what we had coming, because we were never able to communicate properly, never. And I tried different ways of communicating. But I always felt like I was facing defensiveness or silence. And it was really, really, frustrating for me. Of course, knowing what I know today, I would have done sooner what I did during the very last year of the relationship, which was managing expectations. And how do you do that? How do you manage expectations? So first you have to understand your expectation, what would be the ideal case scenario for you, and also understanding the other person's expectations, okay? And what would be the ideal case scenario for the other person. And then basically analyze each part. And are those expectations compatible? Can they both happen? And if they cannot both happen, can you and the other person be available to compromise and come to a repair solution that works for both? So here, there are two scenarios. So if both you and the other person are willing to compromise, you just need to come up with a plan of action for the next time the situation might arise. And you will. Usually you will, in my experience. So if you or the other person are not willing to compromise, this means that you have an unsolved situation, okay? So you have two situations here. In one case, you both agree and you set up a plan of action. Here, the plan of action can be carried out by both parties or not. And if the plan of action is not followed by one or both, that means that maybe someone said yes to the plan of action, but they really meant no. And then the situation will remain unsolved. So here is a big case because actions speak louder than words, okay? And many people say, yes, I will behave better, or I will do different next time, and then the next time appear and they just do the same thing. So you should consider the action and not the words. And I don't say this in a bad way. I don't say people say yes, meaning to say no on purpose, because most times they don't do it on purpose. They really want to be better, or they really want to behave better, but sometimes they just fall into unconsciousness and they just carry it out and do the things on automatic pilot, okay? It's hard on these cases, but what happens is that you end up with an unsolved situation. What happens is also many people, when they see unsolved situations, they think, okay, so we have an unsolved situation, this means we need to break up. And that can actually not be the case. We just need to ask ourselves, do I accept this situation in this relationship for what it is? And is this acceptable for me? So let me give you another example, and I think this will resonate for some of you. I have some friends that they are usually late when we combine. We want to hang out or you want to go somewhere, and I know that person or that those people are usually late. Okay. So I like to be on time for everything. I'm a person that I like to be on time, and it did bother me for a while. It doesn't bother me anymore because I did this process, but it did bother me that my friends were always late. So every time I would go to a place, I would end up waiting for them because they were always late. But they're like that on their lives. They are not only late for me. It's just the way they live their lives. They're like that. So it was an unsolved situation, right? We had different expectations about a situation. But the thing is, even though they have that issue, I like those friends, and I want to have those friends in my life. So I just accept that they're usually late. And what happens usually when we arrange something, I already know that they will be late, so I also get they're late as well. So I don't have to wait for them. And it's fine. It doesn't bother me anymore because I accept them like that. And that's how you turn an unsolved situation to a solved situation. I mean, I could have also talked with my friends about this. But the thing is, they are like that. It's not only for me. They are like that. And I didn't want to ask them to change who they are just for me, to make me happy. I mean, I just decided to compromise myself, to come to an understanding that would be fine, and that I wouldn't let that affect our relationship as friends. So that's how you turn an unsolved situation into a solved situation. So the other solution is, of course, just coming to the conclusion that the situation is not acceptable to you. So imagine if it's something, I don't know, if someone breaks your trust, and that happened on my relationship, trust was broken, and I tried to talk and solve the situation. We came to a plan that he saw that he admitted that what he was doing was wrong, and he told me that he would stop, but then he didn't. And then I tried to talk with him again. And every time he would say, I will stop, and then he wouldn't. So, of course, I mean, it came to a point that I stopped believing his words and start believing his actions more. And again, on that point, I also quit the relationship. I came to a point that, okay, I'm going out because this is not acceptable. Unfortunately, I didn't walk. We got back together after that. But yeah, it was just a matter of I kept believing the words instead of what, actions. So what I did in the last year of the relationship is just trying to see my partner for what he was showing me, and not his words, but his actions. And just finally accepting for myself, what did I want that in my life? Is that what I want on a relationship? Is that acceptable for me? Because on that point, I finally decided to accept the fact that he was not going to change. And so what I did was, okay, and do I accept things as they are right now? Yeah. And the answer, then it became easy, because the answer was clear. No, I don't want, this is not what I want for me. So I just come out. What are we doing? And it was hard because I didn't want to be on that relationship, but he did. So a situation that wasn't acceptable for me, acceptable for him. So that was hard, but in the end, sometimes we have to love ourselves more. And yeah, in the end, that's what happened. So that's what I deal in. I have to say, it was one of the hardest things I ever done in my life, but it was also one of the more fulfilling, because the peace I found after leaving that relationship was something that cannot even be put into words, if that makes sense. It was very heartwarming. And after that, I've had some people appearing in my life, and it's just like every person I meet is more aligned with the person I am today. And so everything just flows. I have friends that are so great to be with. And of course, other people got out of my life, but that's just the way life is, Sometimes we just have to walk away. So I would love if you guys want to share some unsolved situations in your life, or some situations that you had with friends or relationships, and how did you deal with them? Did you walk away? Did you compromise? Let me know everything. And I'm going to read the comments right now. So Nick is saying that was me for most of my life, trying to fill that void. Yeah, what happens is that it's never filled, right? Because it's a void. And my therapist once told me this, and I never forgot, because I think it's so real. It's so true that when people have an emotional void, or I like to call it the emotional black hole, because it's never fulfilled, right? So that kind of hole needs to be filled, and can only be filled from the inside out. So when people are trying to fill it from the outside to the inside, it just sucks everything, and it's never enough. And this is easy to see, because it's impossible. There's no one in this world that can fulfill you emotionally if you are not emotionally fulfilled by yourself. So it's impossible. And that's why relationships fail, because people are just looking outside from something they have inside of them. I do believe we all have that inside of us. We just have to find it out. We just have to figure it out. And when you start being happy, and this happened, during these last months of my life, 10 months, 11 months that I've been single now, is that people start coming. And the interactions that you have with others, once you're fine and happy and well by yourself, are just totally different. They come from a different place, because when you are interacting with other people, you are not looking for being fulfilled. You're just there for the satisfaction of the interaction. So Guido is saying it's never a good idea to date band partners. You're not talking after experience. Well, in my case, it's actually interesting that I remember when we started dating, he said, "Oh, but if we ever break up, please don't leave the band because of that." And I understand why he said it, but for me it was clear that even if we didn't work out, we always separated things a lot. So even if things didn't work out, or we always tried to keep the band on a separate space. We didn't always succeed, and yes, there were times that, especially when in the hardest moments on our relationship, there were times that we ended up having these huge fights in the band rehearsals, and it was awful for the other band members. And I understand that. I don't think it's impossible if people can separate things, but yeah, sometimes when things get really bad, it's hard to keep the neutrality, if that makes sense. Nick is saying that was a red flag, and I ran away as fast as I could when the girl I was with said anything about me spending time with my family. Wow, yeah, that's a red flag. Yes. I mean, and I've also seen that lately, possessive partners. Like they start judging you for spending time with other people and for having a separate life. That's definitely a red flag, because that's what happens when people are insecure, and they are looking for you for all the emotional fulfillment, so they try to have you all for themselves. That's a huge red flag, definitely. And Nikki's saying, I always tell people who are going to be late that the thing start half an hour lately and then they are on time. Yeah, usually what I do is that we came up with a time, and then I know then I know that they're going to be late, so sometimes I'm not even ready on the time, because Sheldon is saying, I also have a problem being distant and not talking properly with everyone. I can only express through writing like this, but here I am doing my best to be proactive, even faking myself. Fake it till you make it, right? Sheldon, it's something that I'm still learning as well, because even though I know what I'm feeling, and I'm a person who is very in touch I'm very in touch with my feelings, and I know what I'm feeling, but it's hard for me to express. Taking in consideration my past, I come from a family, in my parents, I never saw them. It was hard for me to say. It was really there were times that were some repair, there were some situations that were handled really well, but then most times situations were just handled with a lot of aggression, and especially unsolved situations. So I never learned properly how to handle it. And then being on the relationship that every time I tried to communicate something, I felt like I was always misheard or misunderstood. It was really hard for me to, and it still is, to express my feelings verbally. Not here with you guys, but when I'm in the moment and when I'm talking with the person that has done something that has hurt my feelings, it's really, really hard for me to express myself as well. But it's just like you said, and I share that. For me, it's also easier to share through text, but we have to challenge ourselves. And so I try to be. Now I'm trying to be more verbal and trying to express it. And sometimes I still have to calm myself down. I still have to go slowly, but it's just it. We have to challenge ourselves, because it's just practice. It's just like learning an instrument, right? First you are not comfortable, but then the more you do it, it gets more and more natural, right? It's just the same. So Nick is saying, I feel the void with myself, learning about myself, finding out what I like, and allowing myself to do what I want instead of what everyone else wants me to do. That's perfect. That's it, Nick. It's just it, right? And I'm sure you notice as well, once you start doing that, the people that appear in your life are also like that. They usually, of course, not all of them, but the moment you know and you define what's okay for you and what is not, it's also a lot easier to, when someone comes along that challenges those boundaries, and those are healthy boundaries. For instance, I would never allow anyone to forbid me to talk with someone else. It's something that for me, it's a huge boundary. I would never give the power to someone to, hey, you cannot talk with that person, or you cannot see your family more than I don't know, more than one time per week or per month or whatever. Huge red flag, of course. And since I know that, it's easy for me to know that I would never be on a relationship that would ask me to do that, because that's not acceptable for me. Easy. Marcia is saying, there is a hole in my heart that can only be filled by you, like the song Wholehearted goes. For me, my fate was it. Never a relationship with anyone, but then I got lucky and found my husband. But that's a great relationship will come to you, and you seem ready inside, my friend. Oh, Marcia, you're so kind. Thank you so much. To be honest, I'm not looking for a relationship right now. In a sense that it's complicated, because all my life, adult life, I've been on a relationship. So it's hard because I don't want to rush it. I do feel, in the sense, I do feel it's exactly like you say, because once you are well with yourself, usually that's when great people appear in your life, right? I don't know. It's just I try not to have expectations right now and not to make big expectations. But yeah. Well, who knows? I'm not also closing myself. We never know. About being on time, says Guido. Once I went out for a date and I was 15 minutes early. The lady was already there. You're on time if you care. Oh, wow. That's great. That's great. But Guido, some people are always, they just cannot be on time because they cannot organize themselves. It's not the way they work. And it's fine. But because you're not looking, it will happen. Usually that's it, right? Usually that's it. That's how things happen, is when you're not looking. And there's a saying that I really love, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And I please apologize, guys, because I have no idea who said it. It's not mine. It's not a saying, but it's a saying that I love. It's saying, don't chase butterflies, just build or make a beautiful garden, and the butterflies will come to you. And it's the same thing, right? If you see the garden as yourself, if you take care of yourself, if you work on yourself as a person, and start being happy by yourself, the butterflies will just come, right? So people will just come to you. And also, Jim Carrey said this. Jim Carrey said that it's funny that when I started being happy by myself, that's when everybody wanted to be with me. And this was Jim Carrey. And Jim Carrey, he was, of course, you guys know who he is. He's a huge comedian. He was huge back in the 90s. But then he went through a spiritual awakening. He had many bad things happening in his life, a lot of suffering. And then he saw that the illusion of the fame, people think that being famous and rich is the pinnacle, right? Is what everybody wants. And he arrived to that pinnacle, and then a lot of bad things happened in his life. I think he lost his wife and all of that, and it was really bad. And so he said that that's why he left Hollywood, and he was away for a long time. And now basically everything the guy says is legend. He has a totally different insight about everything. And if you guys want to see he has great speeches on YouTube. And it's all about that. It's just about cultivating yourself and being comfortable and being okay with yourself. Mark is saying, I work with someone who would be late for their own funeral. I've never known them to be on time for anything. Being late for their own funeral. That's perfect, Mark. It's just some people are like that, right? Some people are like that. So there you go, guys. If you want to share more situations in your life, because sometimes we just have to let go of people, right? Some people just stop doing things that I don't know. Sometimes we change. People also change. Sometimes we just don't want that person in our lives anymore. Sometimes that person doesn't want us in their lives anymore. And it's just that you just don't let these unsolved situations, because some people carry these unsolved situations like a huge weight, and we all know that, right? There are many people that are negative and think everybody's out to get them. And, that person is always late when they're coming to meet me. They don't care about me. Or, that person did this or did that, but I'm still their friends, and things like this. And sometimes it's really bad because they carry all these things that people did or failed to do, right? And it's not about care. It's not about caring. It's just about realizing if you want that in your life or not. Sometimes you stop caring. Sometimes, okay, I accept this person like that, and that's fine.